On this episode of the Second Swing Thoughts podcast, we have two special guests. We got to chat with Kate Smith-Stroh down in Arizona ahead of the Ford Championship last week. She is enjoying her first full year on the LPGA Tour. She got to tell us about her first couple starts, getting her LPGA Tour card, making a hole-in-one in a practice round, and a whole lot more. Then we also have U of M head coach Justin Smith of the Golden Gophers back for another Coach's Corner segment, talking about the challenges that the Gophers have to face as a northern team. So all that plus a lot of updates from the PGA Tour and a heck of a lot more in this episode of the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. Hey golfers, I'm Drew Mahold with Second Swing Golf here in the studio with Sean Bauer, co-host of the Second Swing Thoughts podcast for another episode. Today, as I mentioned, we have two special guests, Kate Smith-Stroh, Second Swing Ambassador, LPGA Tour player. Her first season on tour, we talked with her about how that's going so far. And then another interview up with Justin Smith, the University of Minnesota men's golf coach. Really, we talked with him about being a northern team and the things they do to have to overcome maybe that obstacle that they face when they compete against teams from down south. So it's an inevitable thing they deal with, but nonetheless, pretty good conversation with Justin there as well. So great stuff in this episode. Yeah,
kind of that classic. Well, our golf season up here in the north, courses are usually only open for 6 to 8 months a year. Down south, it's year round. So how do they handle that?
Yeah.
How do they prepare? And also how that kind of motivates them to maybe prove people wrong. And then Kate, good result for her over at the Ford Championships. It was awesome that she was able to join you guys down there to kind of talk about her beginning of her LPGA career. So you'll enjoy both interviews very much. But before we get there, let's get right into the turn. Now, as of recording this podcast, it's well known who won the Texas Children's Houston Open. So a little outdated, but you can't talk about Woo Lee enough. First career PGA Tour win, a guy who's he's got some star power to him. So to see him finally break through was pretty good.
Yeah, I think he's got kind of a flair and a character that people are latching onto. He also just has a style of play as well that certainly fits the modern game with his swing speed and ball speed he's able to generate. And it worked at this course where it wasn't super punishing to miss fairways or to be a little offline, and there was maybe a bigger advantage to the guys that could hit the ball far. And so he took advantage of that, obviously. Built himself enough of a cushion where maybe, a stumble here, stumble there on the back nine on Sunday. But he had the cushion and was able to withstand it. Also another example of how, most guys, if you have one of those career or really hot putting weeks, you're going to be in contention, have a chance to win. That's what he had this week. Got hot with the putter, and it was that combination of sort of length, power, and then also the putting that really won it for him.
Yeah, I mean, his short game is pretty incredible, especially with his wedges. Driver got himself into trouble twice on Sunday.
Yeah.
Big time trouble. Both par fives. Had to take it unplayable after a lengthy delay there. And then 16, I feel like as he, continues to play more and contends more, he'll probably figure out that, hey, I don't need to hit driver here. I need to just put it in play, because he went into the water off the tee.
Yep.
And then Scotty Scheffler had a putt for eagle, and if he makes that, all of a sudden it's a different tournament.
Yep.
So also kind of has to be a little scary for the rest of the golf world that Scotty Scheffler seemingly showed kind of he's back.
Yeah.
He'd kind of been very inconsistent this season, and then there he was lurking on a leaderboard, chasing down after a kind of a subpar Saturday for him. Really made a charge there Sunday, and we'll see if that momentum carries him into Augusta here next week.
Yep.
As he's looking to win his third green jacket, and
I believe that's the second straight year Scotty's finished one shot back at the Houston Open.
Yeah, because
last year he had like the 6-footer or something against Jaeger, was it?
Yep, Steven Jaeger. Yeah.
And also Rory's playing well too. I believe that was actually his worst. Was it his worst finish in like a year plus in terms of where on the leaderboard? Because he kind of had a sort of a backdoor top 5, top 10 at Houston Open.
Yeah.
I know he'd been just racking up the top 5 finishes since really last April. The big names are starting to find their game ahead of Augusta, which will make it a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's take a quick look at Minwoo's bag. He's got kind of an interesting bag, I think. He goes off the top, Callaway Elyte triple diamond there. Matches that with his 3-wood, also going triple diamond. Playing that at 16.5 degrees, the 3-wood, so kind of that 4-wood model that we're starting to see become more popular. Then he's got a Callaway X-Forge, utility iron there. Has a couple X-Forged irons in there for his longer irons, and then goes into his own Apex prototypes. They're an MB, but obviously tailored specifically for Minwoo. They're really cool looking, just not available to us. And then wedges, he's kind of got a mix. He's got an Opus for his 50, an SM10 for his 56, and then a Vokey Wedgeworks for his 60, and then goes with a cool putter, the Odyssey, the O-Works 1W there. So cool bag for a very entertaining player, and hopefully we get to see him competing more because his game is fun to watch. And
yeah. It's not often you see guys with 3 different wedge models. You might, a lot of Vokey guys have kind of that Wedgeworks sort of customized 60-degree just for that around the green stuff. And that's actually kind of goes for really any player on tour. They have, especially that club that they use most around the greens, that grind is customized for them and how they like to use it. It's not going to be that standard, one of those options that you can just order. It's probably customized. But to that point, he's got 3 different models in his bag of wedges, which I don't think you see very often.
No, definitely. So, cool bag there. Congrats to him. We'll be seeing him at Augusta here. And so, should be a good week ahead. And obviously, you got the some people trying to earn, a last spot into Augusta this week. So,
yes.
Speaking of Augusta, Bella McCauley is out in Augusta, Georgia this week, playing in the Augusta National Women's Amateur. First 2 rounds are at Champions Retreat, which is nearby.
Yep.
Top 30 advance to Saturday's final round at Augusta National, but even if you don't advance, all golfers get to play Friday at Augusta National. Bella was 3 over in her first round, kind of a rough start, but then seemed to figure it out. At the time of this recording, she's currently playing. Last I saw, she was 1 under on her round, so probably needs to, get a couple more, drop a couple more strokes there. Get to 2 or 3 under for a round, and she'll have a chance to play in the final round. But obviously, good to see her battling back. Not surprised. That's kind of how she is, the player she is. And we'll see if she can, make it to Saturday. But obviously, she still gets to play it on Friday, so that's that's every golfer's dream there.
Obviously, super cool, and we've talked to her, and if you've been following the show, we've had her on a number of episodes here recently, and the most recent one with her was simply about this and that experience. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. But obviously, she's really excited about the whole week, and she even kind of said she didn't really have any expectations for the week. It was just the fact that she got to play in this and qualified for it and was invited was already a major accomplishment, and it is. Basically the signs are if you qualify for this event, you have a pretty promising career ahead of you in professional golf if that's the route you choose. So congrats to her, and we'll see here in the next couple hours after we record here if she's able to, tally a couple more birdies and maybe make it to Saturday's final round. But nonetheless, congrats to her. Really cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. And then finally here, a couple of new club releases this week, both in the same category. The mini drivers, you had Titleist GT280. That's up for pre-sale. And then the Callaway Elyte Mini pre-sale should be available in stores on Friday. Obviously, we've seen this trend over the last year or two. TaylorMade kind of brought it back, and then you saw Callaway come out with one last year as well. You've seen some prototypes out there. Now Callaway has a new one, and Titleist enters the mini driver game. So pretty cool. They're cool clubs. I know, Drew, you've gotten to test both of those specific ones. What kind of stood out to you about each?
Yeah, so the Titleist GT280 is, to me, built more like a fairway wood than the other mini drivers you'll see out there, including the TaylorMade one and including the Elyte Mini. The TaylorMade burner that we've seen in the past. It's small. The Titleist one is smaller. It's got their fairway wood face, that kind of L-cup forged face, but it also has the kind of the crown of the driver. So they kind of have both technologies in there, but just because it's smaller, it's a little bit easier to hit off the deck, in my opinion. But I think the Elyte Mini driver, too, is built a slightly more like a driver replacement or driver option off the tee to give you that, if you're a player that struggles with driver, seeking something that you can hit more reliably on those skinnier tee shots, I think the Elyte Mini is probably the one that's better for you. If you're looking for something that's more playable off of turf and off tee, kind of the versatility there, GT280 is a good option. but they're both awesome. And I think this trend is just, it speaks to how the traditional driver 3-wood setup at the top of the bag for all golfers is it's not going away, but I think there's a lot more variability now with what our fitters are fitting golfers into. It might be driver, mini driver 7-wood, or driver, mini driver 5-wood, or maybe it's not even a mini driver. Maybe it's driver to 5-wood, or drive. There's so many different ways to go about that now. And I think this is another example of how the old driver 3-wood combination is not just the standard now. There's a lot of different options.
Yeah, and Jake Montgomery, one of our master fitters over at the Minneapolis store. If you're on our TikTok or any of those channels, it's a great little 40-second video. He kind of just gives a very quick, simple explanation between, the Elyte, the GT280, and then the burner. Just kind of, here's what they are, here's what they're kind of for. And it's just very simple. Obviously, the best way to find out, if it's the right fit for you, which one's the right fit for you, or if it's the right fit for kind of that long game gapping that bag, is to obviously schedule fitting. Make sure it's filling that gap and getting that spin, ball speed, distance, whatever you're looking for. Make sure and it's dialed in so you can get the most out of it. So
but with that said, we'll get to our first segment here, our first interview segment. This is Kate Smith-Stroh. We got to chat with her down at actually our Scottsdale store. She was preparing for the Ford Championship, which was held down in Arizona. And she had a successful week there, made the cut, finished, I believe, in the, 40th to 50th place range.
High 50.
So a successful week for her. She's made 2 out of 3 cuts now in the LPGA Tour, so a pretty good start. But it was fun to just chat with her about her experience playing actually in China. She had an event in China a few weeks ago, so flying over there, dealing with that travel, plus, the process of making earning her LPGA Tour card. All that stuff was talked about in this episode. So fun to chat with her. Obviously a promising career ahead for her. So good one here.
We now welcome on the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. Kate Smith is joining us. We are at the Second Swing Scottsdale store because it is Ford Championship week. So Kate is, of course, playing in the event. Kate, first of all, how you doing? I know today, we'll get to it shortly, but it's already been kind of an exciting day for you.
Yeah, no, it's been a great day.
Yeah.
First hole of the day, I made a hole-in-one, and driving my Ford truck, we're having a great day.
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit off camera. Well, first of all, probably a half hour ago, I pulled up Instagram, and I see Kate's posting about a hole-in-one that she made today. So in the practice round, right? Talk us through that, making a hole-in-one in the practice round for an LPGA event.
Yeah, no, really cool. Hole 10 is a par 3, 172 yards, and hit 6-iron. My caddy and I were like TV tower, and I kind of blocked it to a tucked right pin, and we walked up there, and none of us knew it went in. So I had my putter, and there's a lot of other caddies doing their walks. There's like 10 of us on the green being like, it's in the hole. So it was awesome.
So do you, because I know, my understanding of practice rounds for a professional event is there's, you study the green complexes, there's a lot of homework being done outside of just playing and keeping, you probably don't even keep score during a practice round. So is it kind of odd almost to celebrate that? And then it's okay, now we actually have to do some work here.
It was odd, especially, I got to do some putts, some chipping, and I kind of wanted to pick up, go to the next hole,
right.
And, so it was cool. I mean, any hole-in-one's just special, but in a practice round, you're kind of jazzed, and you got to settle down and do some work. So.
Yeah, well, that's really cool. So let's kind of go back now a little bit in time. So you earned your LPGA card, last fall, winter. It was end of 2024 through Q School, right? So kind of, can you just maybe walk the viewers and listeners, just walk through that process of taking that step, your Epson tour, getting into, where you placed yourself, and then through Q School, and then earning the tour card, how that all played out, maybe the different stages, and then, your placements and how that format all works.
Yeah, it's a little complicated, but there's 3 stages of Q School. You're trying to get exempt through as many as you can. Ideally, for me, being on Epson, you want to top 15 and get your card. So 2 years ago, I was 19th, and then last year, I think I was 33rd or 34th, which is huge because top 35 goes to final stage of qualifying, which is your best, where they give out the cards and the best chances. There's only, 100 of us, and they give out anywhere from 25 to 35 cards. So I made the cut at Tour Championship to get into final stage. So I felt like what a great opportunity, and you kind of have a couple months to get things honed in because I didn't really have a great Epson season, but I knew like my game, I felt like at some point I'm gonna be ready for the LPGA, and that's where I should be. So, but Q School is a grind. I mean, the final stage is 5 rounds, and it's in December, so it's always rainy and cold, and so it's nice to kind of like rely on my roots and be like, I've played in cold, horrible weather all my life. Like I can do it now, and I just like can't describe like now being on the LPGA. It still feels
so. And that's another thing I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on was like the emotions and like the pressure of that, because I imagine ever since you were, you know, a kid, LPGA was kind of a huge goal of yours when you realized, hey, golf is something I'm really good at. So with that, like, did you let that weigh on you? Did you think about it as you're in the process, or did you try to kind of zone that out and like make it simple of like, this is just golf, I just need to play my game?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with psychologists for quite a few years, ever since college. I work with one now, so you work on a lot of different coping mechanisms to like, you know, breathing or trying to figure out how to stay in the present. But it hits you like all the time during Q School. You have to be like super in the present. I struggled with it big time my final round. Like I had built myself up a pretty good cushion to get my card, but I can't remember if it was like 14 and 15. I went bogey. Maybe I had 2 or 3 shots to work with, but it felt like, you know, I'm picturing myself having a card, but I'm also like so nervous that I can barely take the club back. And you're kind of thinking like, okay, I have in the next hour, like my life's gonna change, and like how am I gonna get through the next hour? So
that's because I know it would be very tough for me to not get ahead of myself. And like you said, like picture yourself having your card. And it's like, well, I have some golf to play here. So, but fascinating and obviously very cool that you're able to do that. And so now for those tuning in too, like, could you maybe illustrate what you did earn as far as you know starts, like what the status entails that you earned for 2025?
So they kind of changed Q School, so now the Q School cards are a little bit better status. It is a full status card. Just some of the fields are based off last year, so certain majors take into account the top 80 from Money List last year, but I should have about 17 or 18 guaranteed starts, and then you're just trying to play yourself into the majors based off of your Money List for the current year. So really earned myself a great card, really a lot of opportunities to, I was surprised myself when I kind of got in the weeds that, hey, I have an opportunity to play in every major this year as a rookie and as a person coming out of Q School. So I thought, this is great.
And then now you've now completed 2 events, right? That first event it was cool to follow you because I know you didn't have the best first day, and all of us in the office kind of thought it would take a pretty darn good second day to come back and make the cut, and that's exactly what you did. What does it take mentally to, because now you're basically competing at the highest level, right? So what does it take mentally to maybe have not a stellar first round or get off to the best start, but kind of be able to turn that around and salvage what ended up being a really good week for you?
Yeah, it takes a lot of grit and a lot of like self-belief. I mean, I was 6 over through 16 holes of the first round, and I had got it back to even through 36 holes. So really making 2 birdies to end my first round got me into, then I needed to shoot 4 under the second day, and we're finishing it dark. And so that was like such a good feeling to play the weekend and just fight back. I mean, I didn't want to put myself in that position, but I was really nervous the first round. You want to make a cut. You want to like prove that you're good enough to be here and that you should be on the stage, and when really you should just be playing golf and enjoying it. So it's a lot of emotions to go through while you're out there.
I mean, it seemed like it was a pretty successful first event. I think you finished in the top 40, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
T34. So that got me some good points. That'll set me up for the season, and it's really good.
And so one thing too is that the LPGA schedule, it's relatively global. So I know the second event was in China.
Yeah.
So obviously from where we are now, it's the other side of the globe. So,
Yeah.
Just talk to me about that experience. I don't know if that's your first international event, but you probably haven't played a lot of competitive golf that far away from home. So what was
Yeah.
that like, the travel and kind of, getting yourself used to what would be a wild thing for me to get used to, the schedule of, what day is it? And then getting yourself down to your routine, come tournament time.
It was hard. I made a lot of rookie mistakes, but for that event in China, the sponsor pays for our flights and for our hotels. So
that's really cool.
I got to, fly in business class or first or whatever. I was like, oh, this is awesome. But yeah, it's like 17-hour flight there, and then 2 other flights. So you're kind of like dazed and confused, but it was a beautiful island. I took a local caddy. She was great. Didn't speak a lot of English. So there's a lot of like just learning curves where you're like, okay, I know how to play golf, but how am I playing overseas, and how am I going to be successful over here? So I think, I missed the cut. I didn't play great. My course management wasn't great, but I feel like that experience was really like needed for me to understand, like, hey, I need to do some things different.
Yeah.
And, it really makes LPGA like this is the big time. Like we're
Right.
flying across country, and like you got to play well even when you might not be comfortable.
Yeah.
So I'll learn that.
That is because again, that I'm just thinking about for me, a flight like that, a 17-hour flight plus, connecting flights or whatever there might have been.
Yeah.
That is, and then it's like, okay, well now I have this really big golf tournament to play this week. I got to get myself on the right schedule, sleep schedule, and make sure that all works. That has to be a major adjustment while also having this kind of the heaviest weight. This is the second event in my career on the LPGA to still also think about that and try to compete. But
well, you think of like a lot, even recreational golfers, like you're going to go to, the Holiday Station and get your Mountain Dew and your protein bar. Like there's no CVS where I could go get my, protein bars or anything. Like everything that makes you maybe comfortable for a golf round, you might not have that with you. So it was really good. It was good to be uncomfortable. Like, in those moments, that's like making you better and making you a better player.
Well, as I mentioned, but like to be, the most successful players in the LPGA are playing all over the globe all the time. So that's obviously, something they had to get used to eventually as well, is something similar. So with that said, now that's kind of bringing us back to present day. Ford Championship this week down here at Whirlwind. Just outside of Phoenix, Scottsdale area. We've talked a little bit about it, but today you went out and played, was it 9 or 18 holes today?
9.
9 today. So what does, the week look like for you in terms of preparation for, an LPGA event? How many holes are you playing? What kind of, how much time is being spent on the range or the short game area? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So I try to do a lot of my work at home so that when I land, I'm really just like focusing on the course and focusing on being prepped. I try not to make a lot of swing changes or make a lot of drastic changes once I get on site. But Sunday or Monday, I usually come in, try to, get settled and find my locker, find the golf course, find the hotel. Usually try not to play the day I travel because sometimes, if you're feeling like a little off, it might mess with your confidence. So try to play 9 or 18 Tuesday and then either 9 or 18 Wednesday. Wednesday's a Pro-Am. I'm not in the Pro-Am this week. Some weeks I am. So I try to see the course like 1.5 times just to get a feel for really like the green speeds, like chipping and, how different bounces, different lines off the tee, and just really trying to do that. And then, whatever day I'm not playing, I try to do, 2 to 3 hours of short game and anything I need to get fixed on the range alignment wise or just seeing how I'm hitting the ball. So,
So a little bit more work than say, the average person watching this for like their league event that week. Most people like me just like show up 15 minutes ahead of time, hit a couple balls, maybe a couple putts, and then you tee off. But
they're probably not, doing their
different stakes though too. So
activations in the gym before or their cool down. No, Theragun or a little different, but I mean, still the same game.
Yeah. So same game, but also not the same game for many different reasons.
Different
Skill level,
stakes,
course. That it's all it's golf, but it's just different golf.
Yeah.
So, well, in starting to kind of wrap here, I did want to also bring up your fitting experience. This would have been in the PGA Coaching Center, Second Swing fitting location with Blaine. We love Blaine. He's obviously awesome. But just kind of what, on an overarching level, what were you maybe looking to swap out, or what were you looking to upgrade, I guess, and then what did you kind of achieve in that session with Blaine?
Yeah, I was really actually overdue for a fitting. I felt like I told him like whatever, like wipe the board. I kind of knew my driver needed a new shaft. I knew my irons were not holding the greens in the way that I needed them to for the LPGA. Like when I'm home or on Epson Tour where I was playing before, we'd have like a little slower greens, maybe a little bit softer. And I knew playing on the LPGA, I had one start before, other things I'd seen. I just needed to control like the ball a little bit better than I was. So I was looking for more stopping power with the irons was like my primary focus. And then my wedge setup at the time was really janky. So I was, looking for a big change there. So I changed my grinds, changed my shafts and the wedges. And yeah, I felt great. It's been really good and just like an awesome experience being able to like hit indoors, get the numbers, and also hit outdoors.
Yes.
And, Blaine just had like so much knowledge and like a good like golf nut. He had a lot of different stories. So it was a good time.
Yeah. He's awesome down there. And to your point about the indoor outdoor thing, it's really cool to, I think there's the one limitation being in the store here in terms of getting a fitting in the bay is that you can't watch the golf ball fly.
Yeah.
Because it's inside in our tour van bays. Well, at the coaching center, you can just whip up that screen, and now the ball's flying outside. And even there's also the range turf there, where on some days, depending on the conditions and everything else, you can actually go out on the range and hit from the grass too. So, but really cool that because I think a lot of people don't quite know about, hey, we have a fitting spot at the PGA Coaching Center. So anyway, I just wanted to get that kind of feedback from you because it's really cool for us to be like, hey, Kate Smith-Stroh, LPGA, on tour this year. Hey, she got fit by Second Swing. So that's really cool.
No, it was great. And I've been like just preaching the benefit of like being partners with you guys because I can kind of get access to whatever I need and really have like an unbiased opinion on golf clubs. So, I play a lot of Titleist clubs, but it's nice to know that like I tried whatever, and like right now this is what's the best for me and my swing. And it's great. I hopefully will be at KPMG later and be able to be right there on site. So I loved your guys' studio there. I had no idea it was there either. So
well, there you go. And obviously you and anybody of course is welcome to schedule a fitting, but anytime you need a tune-up, of course Blaine will be right there ready for you.
I'll get a good excuse to go back.
For sure. Well, Kate, this has been awesome to get your kind of perspective on this whole whirlwind, pun intended, of the last few months for you. So,
no kidding.
So we wish you the best of luck this week. And I also encourage the golfers to, they can check out, I think on Instagram, your Kate, is it Kate.Stroh?
Kate_Stroh, yeah.
Okay. So check her out on Instagram, and then also make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. We got more content with Kate coming soon. So thank you, Kate, so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
And that was Kate Smith-Stroh in our putter reserve at the Scottsdale store. If you're curious about if you're watching on YouTube, you're curious about that backdrop that is a unique little space we've got in our Scottsdale store. But again, fun to chat with her and kind of go through, someone at her level and the preparation that they do for events, and then also dealing with the travel to China. And she kind of was almost similar to how we talked about Bella not having any expectations down in Augusta. It was kind of, she didn't really have any expectations because she was dealing with all that, the travel elements and getting herself on a schedule for the first time to that extreme.
Yeah, and really impressive start. I mean, like you mentioned, prior to the interview, she's made 2 of her first 3 cuts. If you've all watched, Full Swing on Netflix, you learned what the cut was, right? But it's important for these golfers because you make the cut, you make money.
Yep.
For their jobs. And obviously, as someone who's a rookie, I think your goal would be to make as many cuts as you possibly can, get yourself, in contention, but learn how to become a professional. And so really impressive stuff. And I know we got a lot more content with her coming out here shortly. Yep. So gives you a great insight into just how good these tour level players are. It doesn't matter if it's LPGA, PGA, Live, whatever, just how good they are, and just how impressive what they can do to the golf ball consistently.
Yeah. To me, it's just the misses or the lack thereof. Like, it's one thing to hit the center of the club face so often, but someone like me, when I miss the center of the club face or I hit one, the miss is like way offline, or I chunk it or something, right? But their misses are just, it's like okay, I'm 20 feet left of where I aimed, right?
Yeah.
So it's really cool to be in that, watch them hit golf balls and go through that with them. So, speaking of really good golfers, maybe not on the LPGA or PGA Tour level yet, but we've got University of Minnesota head golf coach Justin Smith also joining here shortly. Talk a lot about that dynamic of, and Kate Smith is also familiar with this, but being from a place up north, trying to compete with other really good golfers in the southern climates. Justin, of course, accomplished this, winning a national title back in the early 2000s with the Gophers. So he kind of has a good head on his shoulders as far as what that looks like. And now he's trying to, help his team with those challenges as well. So a good conversation here with him. Now welcoming on the Second Swing Thoughts podcast for another Coach's Corner segment. It is Justin Smith, head men's golf coach for the University of Minnesota. Justin, thanks for being here. And this is perfect time of year to talk a little bit about you guys as a northern, climate school, playing Division I golf. And I know this has been a fun one that even like off air that we've chatted about, and it's fun to get the perspective. And we actually did an interview with Eric Van Rooyen, and he mentioned some things about this as well. But competing against Southern schools and doing so without this sort of, hanging over your head of, well, they get to play golf all year round. So yeah, thanks for joining us. Give us the lowdown on that a little bit, and as we get started here.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Hopefully, we'll continue to build off some good things we did first go around.
Oh yeah.
I think it's the ultimate formula for us coaches in the North to figure out, right? Like, the fall season for us is an easier transition for sure, because our players are playing all summer. Even if you look at the calendar year, right, from that January all the way through, it's the back half of their year, and in reality for us as teams, it's the start of our year. So being in the North, we can strategize a little bit differently with tournaments and where we play, and obviously playing more up north, and the weather's conducive to that. But this time of year, we have to get really creative, and I think as coaches, I spend a ton of time, and obviously overanalyze probably way too much. But who we play, where we play them, what type of grass we can play on, trying to make it as familiar as possible to do that for our team, while at the same time making sure we're kind of setting ourselves up for hopefully postseason and well beyond come May. So we got to use every resource at our fingertips as coaches to try to set our team up for success that way. And that's kind of the ultimate challenge this time of year.
Yeah. So, as we're recording this is you guys recently got back from playing in an event in Puerto Rico. And so you guys, you've talked about, in the previous segment, you referred to kind of competing and finishing well amongst the blue bloods of Division I golf, so to speak, that were there. And so kind of, can you just talk about what you do as, when you're managing the program and managing the team and trying to prepare them for that event? What are the steps you guys took to do so, trying to keep, games fresh, ready to compete against some of the best schools in Division I golf?
Right. Yeah, no, it's funny. I got a funny story. I had a conversation with a coach down there, another northern coach down in Puerto Rico, and a little bit of their preparations. It's probably stuff that we keep close to the vest here.
Yeah.
From coach to coach, along with recruiting and other stuff. But a lot of times, like, we got to help each other out, right? We've got to kind of protect each other. Big Ten conference in golf versus SEC or versus Big 12, other Southern schools, right? It gets some fun competitions between that all, and us trying to make sure we're competing at that level. But look, for us, the one thing I think we can do really well is really separate parts of the game. And so when we're looking to prepare for a course or a tournament or the type of weather conditions we're going to face, right? Like the craziest thing is we went down to Arizona on a training trip right at the end of January. It's going to help us play. We play a bunch of events come March and April in the Arizona area. So it's going to give us a great opportunity to be competitive for those. But we had to prepare for Puerto Rico, where it's 82 degrees every day, Bermuda grass. Arizona doesn't have a ton of Bermuda grass, and it's blowing 15, 20 miles an hour. In Arizona, it was dead calm. So how can we kind of get ready for that? I don't know if we fully could, right? Exception of the practice rounds and kind of having guys work on certain shots, but we could really separate parts of the game that we knew was going to translate. And that's something that we try to figure out what translates really well from indoors to outdoors and what doesn't translate well. So we probably don't do a ton of short game work indoors. We do some technique stuff. We don't do a ton of speed putting indoors, knowing that we're going to have to go learn speeds of the greens. We're going to have to learn the grass, going to have to learn the firmness. Down in Puerto Rico, it's very soft. But we needed our best ball strikers because it was going to be windy. Some holes are pretty demanding. Par fives, we needed to drive it well and take advantage of those, which we didn't do, but that's something we'll continue to work on. So that's something we're constantly, evaluating.
Yeah.
And, for that matter, the one thing that we had an advantage on, which was funny thinking about it over, some other teams there is maybe they were doing, I'm sure they were doing, there's a lot of smart coaches, but we could play Grand Reserve, which was the course we were on simulator golf a lot.
Wow.
So there was some talk from some other coaches that were like, is that even legal? Is that like having too many practice rounds in the tournament? And we're like, we're hitting into a screen.
Yeah, I mean,
like we're not down here playing the course, right?
Yeah.
So what it would do is give us the visuals. It would give us the ideas or the distances. You can dial up wind. We know the wind direction that it's going to come, and really create that familiarity. Going back to the first part, is in the springtime we have to create the familiarity for our players, and that's ultimately what leads to their comfort and allows them to free up and play their best golf. And it doesn't guarantee anything, but I think as coaches, we're just trying to stack the odds in our favor to give us that little bit of an edge.
Yeah.
And after the fall, right, we're trying to find a half of a shot per guy that's going to allow us to be in the postseason and play at the NCAA final. So I think we're overanalyzing probably immensely, but at the same time, we're trying to use our technology to our advantage and maybe get a little bit of an edge that most people think we could.
Yeah, I never thought of that, actually. I mean, there's, with all the simulator softwares out there and stuff, I'm sure that's probably an option at many of the tournament courses that you guys have on the schedule, is the ability to play it virtually, which again, there's a limitation to what it actually, how that translates to actual golf out there. But to see the visuals, see how the hole might shape up visually from the tee box, say, that stuff matters. That's fascinating. So mentally now, you mentioned this before too in the previous segment a little bit when you were playing for the Gophers, and sort of this kind of, I kind of have been calling it a chip on the shoulder type of thing. Where, is that something that you kind of try to instill into the players, when they're going to go play, against a bunch of schools that are, southern climates? How do you instill that to them, or maybe have them, train them mentally to kind of think about something like that when it would be very easy for a player to be like, well, these guys have been playing golf the whole time.
It's by far it's the biggest X factor. It's the biggest challenge. For our standpoint is, how do we get a really excited group? And I think when you haven't been on courses and you haven't been battling all year, and thinking about, hey, I'm going to get out of the cold weather, go to a really great place, great venue, great support, all that stuff, right? It's initially going to up your spirits and get you really excited and get you really eager to go compete. That's, I think, the baseline of what as coaches we try to get our players to be. And if we do that, right, we know that, their attitudes and everything they're going to take into the competition is going to be the best they have. And sometimes in the fall, like, we battle, I hate to say it, I know these kids are 18 to 22 years old, they're young men, but like, you're at the back end of a calendar year, and they've been playing all year, competing all years. You sit there and kind of keep a close eye on, is it playing too much, right? Are they kind of winding down? Are they getting a little bit fried?
Is there
Are they getting a little burnout, some fatigue? Yeah. This time of year, it's just full on, like, excitement, eagerness. And then if we can add in a little bit of that chip on the shoulder, like, hey, nobody's giving us credit. We're going to come down into here, and people are like, no chance Minnesota can compete. And you get a group to kind of buy into that. That can just be that extra difference. And we have to buy into it. We have to believe it to kind of make up a little bit more ground.
Yeah, I guess that's another element I didn't think of. But, there's what's another round of golf outside for those schools down south versus you guys who have been trapped inside, with the exception of maybe the trips you guys end up doing. But, like, there's an excitement level there, that's an enthusiasm that's probably a little bit higher than those other schools that have been down there and playing golf outside, and it's nothing different for them to just play. They're playing golf.
Take
again,
it for
so,
granted.
Yeah,
right?
You take it for granted.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The fortunate thing from our end is we're about to take our second training trip coming up this coming weekend, and it's one of our few times we get to travel the entire team. If you look at a lot of other sports teams, basketball teams, whatever, like they travel their whole team all the time. For us as golf, like we don't get to travel our whole team. We got 5 or 6 guys, and then we have 2 or 3 at home, and they're working on their game to try to crack the lineup.
Right.
So to be able to take everybody, like it adds an element, I think, to their excitement and their experience and like the enthusiasm to do it all together. That we saw earlier with our training trip. We'll do it on this coming training trip. And we'll do it on our spring break trip. And it's just another way to kind of create that excitement, and something that we try to do every day in practice. Like maybe not the whole practice. They need to focus on their individual tasks and in their areas of their games that they need to really kind of be intentful with. But it's also at the end of how do we create that energy. And just the other day, like our assistant coach was kind of challenging one of our guys on our team over ball speed and says, there's no way you can beat me on ball speed. Well, before you know it, we had everybody on the team in our hitting bay watching this back and forth.
Yeah.
And it was bringing stuff out of our team. I'm like, this is kind of what we need. Can we take this into everything we do? Because that could be the difference.
Right.
And so I think we're trying to find every little nook and cranny we can use to our advantage.
Now, in terms of recruiting, this is another, area I'm curious about, because there has to be a little bit of a hurdle, so to speak, when recruiting and kind of, letting these recruits know, or your prospective players, hey, this is the reality of the situation. You have a couple months out of the year, if not more. I mean, a few months out of the year, really up here, where you can't go outside and play golf. So this is, this is what we do, but ultimately, this is how we have to operate. Is there, and with that said, you're able to land. There's players on the roster from all over.
Yeah.
So clearly something's working there. But I guess without giving any secrets away, like what's the there's certainly a message that you have to kind of portray in recruiting.
Yeah, look, my first couple of years as a coach, right? It was a question I never wanted it to come up. I never wanted weather to come up. And the reason is because I didn't really have a great answer.
Right.
Now I think more years into it, I want it to come up right away because I want to make sure we have the right fit. And are we ever going to be the most talented team in the country? Probably not. But we don't have to be. We have to have a group that's in it together. They love everything about Minnesota. Our athletic department at university, at a golf level, we have so much at our fingertips, and we're so grateful for the opportunity to do it. When you pair that on top of what our community does, our support, our donors, our alumni, and business like Second Swing here, and the support you guys all show us, now we've built kind of a spot where you can get better anywhere.
Yeah.
And the facilities are at that level. And yeah, we don't have golf course to play as much as other teams, but it's all about the other stuff. And if we get a group that's really about Minnesota and buy in, we kind of call it our commit north mentality, just embracing it and saying, yeah, like there might be days that are harder than others, and you're going to get like a little bit pulled in different directions of like, gosh, can I get better here? But you can. It's been proven. You look at what Ben Warren's done. You look at what Angus Flanagan's done. But yeah, we've got some of our best players are from Peru, from Australia, obviously Scotland, but we've got our Minnesota kids. Like we've got kind of a diverse group here from all over that's getting better. And as coaches, right, we always want to try to speed it up and help them do it quicker. But you can do it here. You just got to buy in. You just got to face it. And Minnesota is an amazing place to do that.
Yeah, I can't imagine that conversation with a player, and it's got to be really cool to have the player from Peru or whatever, a southern climate, able to get them to come play for Minnesota because you know that they're going to buy in and they're about the team if they're willing to sacrifice kind of, warm Decembers and Januaries to come up here in Minnesota and play. But it's got to be really cool to have that conversation with them, and they're like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
I'm all about it.
It's tough at first, and there's a lot of check-ins early on.
Yeah, I'm
make sure they're okay, or do we need to buy you another jacket, kind of thing, or a big winter parka. But they're the ones that embrace it as well as anybody. Like it's impressive. Like our Australian freshman comes in, and I can't not today. Probably, I hope not. Like it wouldn't be the smartest thing in the world, but he'll come to practice. It's cold, and he doesn't have a coat on. He's just like, I'm ready. Let's go. Right. But that's the mentality we need, and that's what we have to recruit. And then I know that we got a group of 8 or 9 or 10 that's all in it together like that. Then we can achieve what we want for sure.
Yeah. So when these spring events come, and I don't know if you guys pay attention to this, but you're looking at who's all down there. Obviously most of the schools. There's maybe some Big Ten schools that are quote unquote northern climates and stuff. But is that something you guys take note of, or is it just like, hey, there's a team here, let's just beat them? Is it more like that? More of that?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I'm more that way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care who's in my way.
Yeah.
Like, we got to figure out how to beat them. I don't care what names on their shirts. I don't care what colors they have. I don't care where they're coming from. We got to figure it out and out-compete them and outsmart them and kind of, use our strategy to our advantage with the group of people that we have. But, yeah, I think, without getting into too many specifics, I think like we just gotta know what our identity is.
Yeah.
Like we're about avoidance, right? Like, this past tournament that we were in, we led the field. We were tied for first in pars, made 183 pars. Is that the ultimate category that you want to lead in that helps you win tournaments? Probably not. But it's a step in the right direction for us of how we're kind of attacking or the parts of the game that are sharp enough.
Yeah.
Now it's all of a sudden like we were, I think, 10th out of 15 in birdies made. There's a lot of stats out there, a lot of people and a lot of data people that say like it's about avoidance versus like leading the field in birdies. Obviously, when you're playing the best teams in the country, you kind of got to do both.
Right.
But at the same time, like that's the start for us. If we keep doing that over a long period of time, I feel really good about the way our finishes are going to come for us this spring. We just got to play the par fives a little bit better, kind of cut down on a few sloppy things around the greens. But this time of year, like that's okay. Like we'll continue to get better at it, and we'll kind of face it head on and figure out how on practice trips and at practice rounds. And as we continue to go through the spring, we'll continue to get sharper.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I'm sure in a sense, a kind of a moment there to see this is kind of what you guys are embracing is the avoidance thing. I imagine that's avoiding the big numbers, avoiding the bogeys, avoiding the mistakes, and then to lead the tournament in pars. That's again, I'm sure on maybe half the holes, so to speak, right? You're thinking birdie out there, right? And then the other half, it's like that's those long par fours, tricky, difficult holes. You're thinking par, but still there's an element there where you're like we're on the right track here. Yeah,
in ball striking, ball control is something this time of year that we can be as good as anybody at. We have incredible resources in technology to help us understand that and figure out who's really sharp and are we getting better, even if we're hitting in a hitting bay versus hitting out on a range or playing on a golf course. So that avoidance part's a huge topic of discussion for us day in and day out, and a lot of it's golf course strategy and us coaches really kind of laying out how to play holes and how to attack it based on player strengths. But obviously when you play the best teams in the country, which we just did, you got to be good at all of it. And that's the fun challenge to get to that level and to compete at that level consistently in the standard we want to be at. But at the end of the day, right, what is our identity? This is what we want to be about. And it doesn't matter the time of year, that we're in, that we can certainly excel at those areas. So certainly excited about what we learned in Puerto Rico and then what we'll apply moving forward, even though we might not have the best stuff outdoors to go compete on at home here, but that's okay. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, you've obviously as a player you've done that before, so you kind of you learn how to deal with it, and then you apply it and have success, right? So, so Justin, thank you for joining. This is great. We talking a little bit about what you guys, both mentally and preparation wise, how you guys play with those schools down south. It's fun to hear that process a little bit. So we wish you the best of luck moving
Appreciate
forward
it.
the rest of the season here, and always at Second Swing we're always rooting for you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And that was Justin Smith, head golf coach of the Gophers. I think he makes some good points there. I think it's interesting how to him that gap has closed a lot. Where back in the day, facilities technology just didn't allow for the type of thing they can do now. Plus, there's just now they can travel more and they can kind of simulate things with their environments better than they could in the past. So there's not as much of a gap, but nonetheless, it has to be if I'm a guy playing on a Southern team and there's a team flying down from Minnesota, and I kind of, my first thought probably would be like, when's the last time they've played, real golf outside?
Yeah, and I think, kind of in the prior episode we had with Justin, kind of talks about the technology evolution that they've seen. He talked about when he was in college, they would go to, the indoor golf domes and just hit balls till, they couldn't hit anymore. And now with TrackMan's indoor simulators, Putt View, all the technology that they have within their facilities to kind of help, imitate real golf as best they can. I also thought it was cool that they can kind of like take a look at the course through, through TrackMan and other, various platforms, but so they kind of get an idea of what to expect, what it's going to look like. But yeah, really cool. And this is our second of 3. We got one more with Justin coming out here. I'll be coming up here.
Yep.
Kind of right before the Big Ten championships at the end of the month, but that one's really interesting too because it's kind of that dynamic between being an individual sport but playing for a team.
Yeah.
How do you kind of balance that? So
yeah, that is as someone who's played a little bit of team golf, it's a different thing. And sometimes strategically it does change things too when you're playing, and and it also kind of helps in the sense of the first day you shoot a 79 and you're out of the tournament individually. The next day, your score is just as important for your team. So with that said, though, we've got some things coming up here on the YouTube channel that I'm excited about. So obviously, for those that aren't following yet, every Thursday, we got our Live at Lunch at 1 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you're tuning in for that. Also, we have some content from tour trucks on the PGA Tour. We've stopped at Ping. We stopped at Cleveland Trixon. We've got a lot more stops coming up here. So we've got content from those visits that is going to be publishing sporadically on the YouTube channel. We watched some guys get clubs built for them. We watched some wedges being built for Keegan Bradley and for Sahit Thagala. We talked to the kind of the leaders of these tour trucks, the directors of operations there, and what the process looks like, the hoops that they jump through for these guys. So really cool behind the scenes stuff that we have. Make sure you stay tuned to the YouTube channel for that stuff coming forward here.
Yeah, should be good. I know we got another big content piece coming out next week. People want to keep their eyes out for that. Pretty unique video, unique content. I'll put it that way, without giving it away. On the club side, like we said, we had the mini drivers have come out. Titleist and Callaway, both available online at secondswing.com. Should be available. The Callaways should be available in stores on Friday. And then the GT280, once it's the pre-sale date right now. Once they get to their full launch, they'll be available in our stores as well. But 2 new options for people, looking to fill in that gap of your long game.
Yep.
So.
Wherever that might be. So subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. And again, stay tuned every week for these episodes on the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. Tune in to the YouTube live stream, Live at Lunch, Thursdays at 1 p.m. Central Time. And we'll see you next time on the Second Swing Thoughts podcast.